Welcome back, thanks for tuning in. If you're wondering what this is a very small section of a very large bookcase I have in my office, and I keep all kinds of stuff on it, pretty much anything that I have collected over the years. And as you can see, it is in great need of some organization. And to that end, I want to build a very similar to the desktop organizer I made for my workstation. As you can see here, it's going to be made out of 1/4 inch ply with a bunch of different cubby holes, and I'm going to make acrylic drawers for that. And I always use those little yellow pads to try and cut down on, well, as many of the errors I might make. So what I do is I sketch it out what I want, get rough dimensions from the bookcase itself for what the maximums are going to be, decide exactly how much of that space I want to use up, and then I'll figure out where all the different dividers are going to be, and then of course take careful measurements and make sure that well, everything's where it needs to be. That doesn't always work out, because you're going to notice at the beginning, even though it was only on for a few short seconds, one of the dimensions I put down as approximately 4 1/8, because when you're making the rabbits, I tend to set it once, and then as long as I'm happy with it, that's perfectly fine, and then I cut all of them at the same time so they're all at the same depth and everything fits properly. But it's not a precise depth. It is roughly in the middle. And as it turns out, I was a little off on one of them, which is fine. It is one of the smaller pieces that divides. And what I should have done, and what I didn't do unfortunately, is do the dry assembly first, and then take the measurements off of that for those final dividers. But I had these pieces here. These pieces were, hey, they're 4 1/8. That's great. I'll just shave them just a tad so that they're all exactly the same, and that way I don't have any offcuts. And I thought, that worked out well. As it turns out, of course, that wasn't the case. And as this progresses, you're going to see that one other thing changed, but we'll get to that in a little bit. There are all the pieces. Now I just need to set up the rabbits. And as I said, what I do is... Oh, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself here. One thing I need to do, because these are 13 inches, I need to trim them down to 12. I could have got away with just leaving them at 13. The width of the shelf is 12, of course, and it would just stick out a little bit, but I didn't want to do that, just because, well, it wouldn't look proper, and I might, catch an elbow on it or whatever. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I decided to cut it down to 12. And as you can see, because of the size of my saw slit, I couldn't do it the way I normally like to do it, which is set this up and then trim them down to size so they're all identical from that way. So I am, at this point, trusting that these are all the same length to begin with, and I'm just trimming off the ends. I don't like doing it that way, but as it turns out, I checked prior, of course, they are almost exactly all the same size. And I'm using my this is what I use for making thin slats, just to make sure that it is, well, all of them are cut exactly the same and they're square. It turns out it worked out really well. Like I said, I don't like normally doing it from that end, but as it turns out, it's fine. So there we go. Cut all the long ones as well. Double check the measurements, of course, just to be sure. And then, as I said earlier, we're going to get on to making the rabbits, which is setting that down nice and low. I tested, obviously, a couple of scrap pieces, made sure that the depth was where I wanted it to be. And then I need to trim the rabbits on the ends, which is the easiest part first. But there's one thing different about this, and that is the center shelf is going to fit into both the end pieces. So... this is going to be, I think it's the bottom. Doesn't really matter. You can just flip it all over, so it's not really important. But this is going to be the bottom, and I'm going to cut the end bits first. And then I need to flip it over, of course, and do the other side. And I'm going to do the top as well, because the corners are all going to be the same. But as I said, the center shelf, the horizontal one, is going to fit into the two end pieces. And that means that it's going to be a slightly different amount. It should be off by 1/8, but I have to be very careful, of course, because you don't. It has to be measured. I have to make sure. Otherwise, you're going to have, a slight out of a squareness to it, and I don't really want to have that. It'll be really obvious when everything's supposed to be square if it's just slightly off to one side. So this is now the center one. You're going to see as I progress what I'm going to do here. Instead of showing you all the rabbits, I am going to show you what I meant by the offset, so that everything comes out in the end to be where all the verticals are going to fit. So all the vertical dividers are going to all be perpendicular to the base, and that's the most important part for all this. Also, the other thing I did, of course, is as this progresses, is once I have any of the rabbits cut, I just double check that it's going to fit. As you see, it's a little snug here, so I'll do one more pass at a slightly different dimension. And the nice thing about making these is I always try to make them symmetrical, in the sense that once, like, the dividers are so much in from each side that way it makes it a lot easier. I don't have to make too many adjustments. I mean, there's already enough going to happen when I have to put in the one center panel, which is different on all the sides. So these are all fine now. It slides back and forth nice and easily. And then what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm not going to show you all of this now. What I'm going to do is show you how this is going to fit together. So you see here at the end, that's how much it's going to fit in. And that is where I need to cut the center pieces. So I need to make that first measurement and make the first cuts and make sure that they are, as you can see here, on the edge here as well. And then I need to adjust the stop so that I can cut out the center bit, so that they are now all the same size, and they all fit, of course, perpendicular right above each other. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing for the top part. As you can see here, one other thing you have to do when you design these things is make sure that the verticals are all offset, so you don't end up cutting all the way through it. And one thing I decided to change my mind on, I was thinking of doing 4 drawers on the top, and I changed my mind. I decided to make one slightly larger drawer. I really couldn't give you a reason why. I mean, it's not like this takes very long to set up. The amount of acrylic is going to be the same anyway, except maybe a couple of different lengths. So yeah, it wasn't really any particular reason for it, other than the fact that I thought a larger drawer would be nice. So I'm going to have 3 drawers on, well, top and bottom. And in the top, the center one is going to be a little bit longer. Wider. So there you go. This is why I should have waited to this point. This is the dry fit, by the way. And as you can see, my approximate 4 1/8 is actually under by 1/8. So I have to cut this a little bit longer. Not a big deal, because these are they were going to be offcuts anyway. So it wasn't really like I'm not wasting any wood here. And what I'm going to do now is set this up for 4 1/4. And then what I can do is I can trim them down if it doesn't work out. As it turns out, it is perfectly fine. I'm going to slide this one in here. I'm going to do one more just to double check, make sure that everything's fine. And then last thing left, of course, is to glue this all up. Now, glue up, I'm going to leave a lot of it out, because you can just watch the other video if you want to see it. It is all pretty much the same. I had one issue with a bit of tight fitness, and because of that I had to move it around, and it wasn't really where the camera was. And because I'm gluing, I really couldn't take the time to stop and reorganize the camera and everything, so a lot of it got cut out anyway, so it's fine. It worked all out in the end. So what I'm going to do here, as you can see, is I'm going to put glue in all the little slots, fit it all together, and then use an awful lot of tape. I'd prefer tape over clamping this, mostly because I don't have enough clamps to do this with. But I've never had any issue with gluing, so that's perfectly fine. And the one thing that's remaining, of course, on this project is to make all the drawers. So I'm going to do that in the next video, and then show you what it all looks like. And part of the reason for making this is twofold. First off, I'm getting into doing some additional fabrications. I am going to be I picked up a heavy-duty sewing machine. I want to do some canvas rolls for tool storage, and that's something that's going to be coming up as well. And the other thing is, well, that's part of the, of course, that's also part of the reason for this. I do need to have a place where I can keep all the equipment I'm going to need for that organized, and I'm not going to do it down here in the basement. I prefer to sit down while I'm doing all these things, and it's just easier to operate the foot pedal on the sewing machine and everything else while seated. So I'm going to do that up in the office. So the other reason is I do want to do another acrylic glue up just so that those of you who saw the basic gluing for how to glue acrylic, weld acrylic, you'll also get another example of that too. So I want to do that as a separate video. I also will provide a link to the other two videos I did recently on the hows, whys, and wherefores, and that will also give you hopefully a full picture on what you need to do if you want to do acrylic gluing. So you can see this is pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of getting glue on pretty much everything, and then fitting all the different slats together, and then using an awful lot of tape. But as I said, one of the, let's see, which one was it now? I think it's the one on the bottom on the right turned out to be just a little snug. I mean, the thing is these are all fairly tight to begin with, and all it takes is this one just being ever so slightly off, and you have to force it into place. And as you can see here, I had to change the positioning, and like I said, it all worked out in the end. It's just wasn't in a good position to film. So, and like I said, I couldn't take the time to reposition everything. So I'm going to finish this taping up here. There's a lot more to go, as you can see here in a second. There it is, all taped up, ready to cure. And I'm just going to show you the squareness here. And please leave comments, let me know what you think about all this. And of course, stay tuned for part 2, where I will build the drawers and get this thing up and running. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.